The problem with the word influenza is its misappropriated meaning. We get a cough or cold and then wrongly moan, we've got the flu. It's a mistake, which means we don't take the real flu seriously enough, even though last year it killed 1,100 Australians and put another 30,000 in hospital. It's a deadly danger, but there is some good news. Scientists are currently working on a super vaccine to beat the virus, one that's much more effective and longer lasting than the current yearly flu jab. In the meantime, though, as Karl Stefanovic reports, Australians need to avoid the flu like the plague.
There's nothing quite like maternal love. And the bond between Sarah Hawthorne and her baby boy is extraordinary. Axel is a perfectly behaved 8-month-old, and it's like he knows he shouldn't take his mum for granted.
Sarah, how are you still alive?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm the lucky one.
You really feel that sense, don't you?
I came so close so many times.
Sarah gave birth to Axel 6 weeks prematurely, while she lay dying.
That is you in the hospital. Look at all those wires.
She spent the first 2 months of his life in a coma.
It's so lethal.
Because of an invisible killer.
I'm like, how sick is Sarah? And one of the nurses told me, Rob, she's the sickest person in Victoria, if not Australia.
Sarah was left clinging to life because of the flu.
It nearly killed me, and it has killed other people.
As this year's horror flu epidemic
has claimed another victim. Health authorities say it's the worst outbreak in years.
Last winter, a deadly strain of influenza, nicknamed the Aussie Killer Flu, ripped through our country and the rest of the world.
The CDC today warning about this dangerous strain.
It was indiscriminate.
One day she's fine, next day she gets the flu.
Yep.
And then a couple days
9 days later, she's passed away.
Yep.
The death toll here climbed to 1,127. Mums and dads, sons and daughters who thought they were battling the classic winter cold when their lives were cut short.
And she just almost seemed like her normal self. Just goes to show, like 15, 20 minutes later, knowing that was the last kiss goodbye.
But the virus's rapid and lethal spread could have been avoided. And it's this laboratory that holds the key to making sure a flu epidemic of this magnitude never happens again.
We've got to do better than we're doing now, that's clear. I think it'll save a lot of lives, yeah.
It was 1918 when the very first flu pandemic was recorded. It wiped out more than 50 million people around the world. Known as the Spanish influenza, it was so contagious and so deadly, it killed anyone who was infected by it. Fast forward 100 years, and by sheer coincidence, a similar supervirus spreads across the world and makes its way to Cobram, a country town in far northern Victoria.
At the start, it was just cold symptoms, and then I couldn't breathe for 2 days.
And you just knew.
It just wasn't normal.
In August last year, 34-year-old Sarah Hawthorne, almost 8 months pregnant with her first child, was struggling to shake her fever and runny nose. As the symptoms quickly worsened, her husband Rob began to worry.
One look at her, she was blue, couldn't breathe, and yeah, I knew then it was pretty bad.
What were you thinking?
Get to the hospital. I wasn't taking no for an answer.
When they reached emergency, Sarah was so sick with the flu, she was rushed straight into surgery to save her baby.
Did you think that anything was seriously going to happen to you?
No, Not at all. I just thought, right, they're going to knock me out, they're going to deliver the baby, they're going to give me some medication, and I'll wake up.
A few hours went by, and all I remember was a nurse just crashing through the door. And then suddenly they wheeled out a baby.
At 4 a.m. on August 28, baby Axel Hawthorne came into the world, just as his mum, Sarah, was preparing to leave it. In a coma, fighting for her life, she was airlifted 250 kilometres to the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne.
That was the dilemma. Do I stay with my newborn baby, who I've met for a matter of minutes? Do I then jump in the car and drive the 3-hour trip to Melbourne to be by my wife's side, who is at this time very ill? My thought chain was that I've only just met the baby and he was in good hands.
You wouldn't have known whether she was going to make it or not. That would have been the longest drive of your life.
Didn't know. Didn't have a clue.
The Alfred Hospital's ICU was ground zero for many of Australia's worst flu cases last year.
Hi, boss. How are you?
Dr. Steve McLaughlin and clinical nurse consultant Annie Jones were working right on the front line and were there the morning Sarah was choppered in.
What state was she in when she got here?
Oh, it's definitely a life-threatening situation. Obviously, your lungs are a vital organ, and when you're needing that level of support and 24-hour nursing care, and she's in an induced coma, it's very concerning.
From the flu?
From the flu, yeah.
Australia and the rest of the world were hit by an aggressive and deadly flu strain they simply weren't prepared for. It was a type of influenza A called H3N2. The virus spread quickly, mutated, and broke down an infected person's immune system, making them more susceptible to other dangerous diseases. Many of us don't realise how the flu can become an epidemic. The spread is simple. Just by coughing or sneezing, droplets can travel up to a metre to another person. Even just breathing in an enclosed space like this means everyone inside it can be infected. And if the virus is transferred onto an object, that virus is still active. And that means anyone who touches it is in danger.
Did you prepare for saying goodbye?
I said goodbye. We started making preparations for a funeral. And on top of that, you've got a newborn who potentially is going to grow up without a mum. And you're thinking in your head, like, how am I going to explain this to him?
You better put your arm around us.
I'm fine. Yeah.
The hours turned into days, then weeks. And after a month in a coma and with no improvement, Sarah was put on a life-saving machine to help keep her alive. Her days were numbered, so it was time to meet baby Axel before it was too late.
Mum is still unconscious, but you're facilitating skin-to-skin contact.
Yes, in the bonding for the baby, and that he becomes familiar with Sarah's smell, touch, heartbeat.
She got to hold or at least touch her baby in case the worst happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nature just took over. He just cuddled into her chest like it was meant to be. He just knew that this is my mum.
Must have been nice for you, man.
I just stood there, mate. I was just fighting back the tears. Like, it was just one of those moments in life that's imprinted in the back of your mind forever. The three of us were together, as a unit, as a family, together.
Coming up,
she just said she felt a bit off colour, and then all of a sudden they're telling you that she might not survive.
when the flu turns deadly.
What'd you say?
Just that we loved her and she was going to be okay. But she wasn't.
And the world's first 10-year super vaccine.
That's a game changer as far as I'm concerned.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
Look at that photo, that's gorgeous.
Yeah. I'm not awake there, but I look awake.
For Sarah Hawthorne, looking through photos of her newborn son Axel is painful and heartbreaking. That's because for the first 2 months of his life, she had no idea of his existence. She was in a coma, fighting for her own life.
What do you mostly think about when you look at those photos?
This is the first time Sarah's felt strong enough to go through them.
Boy needs their mum. We all need our mum. Who's gonna hold him when he cries? Not his dad. Tell him to toughen up. It's very real. Very real.
Sarah was infected with the deadly flu strain H3N2 and is lucky to be alive. Last year, the same virus killed more than 1,000 Australians, and many of its victims were young, fit, and healthy, just like 18-year-old Maddie Jones.
What do you miss most about her?
Just having her here. Like, no one thing, I don't think. Just leaves a big hole in you. Big hole.
Last October, Maddie and her boyfriend Callum were holidaying on the Sunshine Coast when she began feeling flu-y. At first, no one, including her parents, Damien and Danielle, thought anything out of the ordinary.
What sort of symptoms did she have?
She just said she felt a bit off colour. She felt she had a little bit of trouble breathing, but the doctor said that they thought that was fairly normal.
What happened after that?
That night she started getting worse with a really high temperature and kept saying that she couldn't breathe and that it hurt to breathe, so I took her up to the hospital. And from that moment we walked into that hospital, it was on.
Basically they gave us the news that they were going to give her a 50% chance of survival. You thought your daughter had the flu and then all of a sudden they're telling you that she might not survive.
Maddie's flu broke down her immune system, which led to sepsis and toxic shock. Within hours, she was in a coma. Maddie died 2 weeks short of her 19th birthday.
Were you able to say your goodbyes?
We were able to talk to her, but she wasn't able to communicate with us.
What'd you say?
Just that we loved her and she was going to be okay. But she wasn't.
Yeah.
So difficult.
Yeah.
The most difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this, after all these years, as you say, such a fit and healthy girl,
Mm-hmm.
to see her like that as a mum.
Gut-wrenching. There's no other word for it.
Hey, guys, it's me again.
Around the same time, 8-year-old Rosie Anderson became the youngest Australian to die from the flu.
We're still sort of trying to find a new sense of normal, I suppose.
Is there any such thing?
Not now, no. No. She was our firecracker, sort of. She was the energy in the family, and it feels like a lot of that is now gone.
She'd never so much as had a cold before, and it worried her parents Christian and Kylie. They took Rosie to the doctor and were told to keep her home from school.
It was about 9 o'clock. She wasn't feeling too good. I went to go and get dressed to take her to the hospital. Within 5 minutes, I'd gone out of the room, come back in. She had gone non-responsive on one of the chairs. So I called the ambulance straight away. By that time, she'd gone completely limp. They came up into our house. They put a mask on her, and then I saw blood coming out of her mouth. From knowing what we know now, she was gone when she hit the ambulance.
Do you feel a little broken?
20 minutes was all it took for Rosie's young life to end. Her immune system had been savaged by the virus and she'd developed pneumonia.
I obviously take a bit of blame on myself. Should have taken her to the hospital.
You don't need to carry that.
Yeah. Oh no, it's just every parent does the same thing.
I do the same.
You two do not need to carry that.
I think it's part of the process and part of being a parent. You need to look after your children and feel like I failed her.
You didn't.
I know.
There was one thing Rosie, Maddie, and even Sarah all had in common. They hadn't had their winter flu vaccine. And they weren't alone. Last year, only 27% of Australians had their flu jab.
And the real critical issue is the inertia that we're seeing with companies.
Dr. Anthony Fauci has been the director of the US National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases for 34 years. He says the flu vaccine can be the difference between life and death and shuts off an outbreak.
It isn't a perfect vaccine yet. There's no such a thing as a perfect vaccine against any disease. But influenza, even though it isn't as optimal as we would like it, if we vaccinated more people, we would save more lives. So the recommendation in the United States is that anyone 6 months of age or older should be vaccinated.
Last year, around 150 million Americans were vaccinated against the flu. And Dr. Steve McLaughlin at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne believes the same recommendations should be made here in Australia.
From a medical professional's point of view, is it incomprehensible that more people don't get the flu vaccine?
The first day it's available, we get, and our consultants and all the ICU specialists, we get someone to come to the meeting and give us all the flu shot.
Can I take it a step further and say, is it irresponsible for us not to get it?
Oh, it's a whole vaccination debate, but I think on the human side, you know, once you see someone with severe flu, you wouldn't want someone to go through that.
So a medical professional gets a vaccine. Why the hell wouldn't the rest of us?
Yeah, I think it's obviously an area that gets controversy, but it's not a difficult decision to me. It's not a difficult decision.
Coming up, why the world needs a better flu shot.
The vaccine was partially mismatched to the virus that was circulating.
Now, we reveal the 10-year super vaccine.
What we call a universal flu vaccine. That's a game changer as far as I'm concerned.
That's next on 60 Minutes. At the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases in America, these scientists are developing a vaccine that will change the way we treat the flu forever.
2017, 2018 is among the worst, if not the worst, seasonal influenza that we've had.
The current flu vax is developed over a 6-month period, but its efficacy is largely a guessing game. The upcoming season's flu strain is predicted and grown into eggs to produce the vaccine. At best, it's 60% effective, and it needs to be better.
The problem that happened this year is that when the virus was put into the eggs, in the process of mutating and adapting itself to being able to efficiently grow in eggs, it changed enough that it became a mismatch, which led to a very low efficacy of the vaccine against H3N2 in Australia.
But there's been a monumental breakthrough. Dr. Fauci and his team are developing a universal vaccine that will be up to 90% effective in protecting us against every different flu strain for up to 10 years. That could mean no more yearly jab, no more outbreaks, and hopefully, no more deaths.
The hemagglutinin is a molecule that, if you want to make a metaphor, it's shaped like a mushroom, and the head part is the part that you make the response against most vaccines. The problem is the head part mutates easily from season to season. However, the stalk of that mushroom, it doesn't change from season to season. So if we can get a powerful response against that part of the virus that doesn't change, then you're getting close to what we call a universal flu vaccine. That's a game changer as far as I'm concerned.
Back in Victoria, Sarah Hawthorne once again defied the odds. After 2 months in a coma, not knowing she was a new mum,
Yeah.
Sarah opened her eyes.
Say hi to Rob. Hi, Rob. Yeah. Hi.
That took forever. She just didn't wake up. There was no Sleeping Beauty with a kiss that just opened her eyes and just, trust me, I tried.
The unbelievably tough battle didn't end there. Sarah had to learn how to walk, talk, and move again.
Getting back on your feet is not that simple when you're so far left to run.
After waking up, all she wanted to do was carry Axel back to ICU and thank the staff for saving her life.
And by God, you did it.
I did it. I did it. And they just couldn't believe that I was able to carry my baby after seeing me so ill. They don't get many people come back and see them after. And it was special.
Why and how she survived when so many others weren't so lucky is something that still torments Sarah and Rob today.
You seem to carry a little bit of guilt for living.
I don't want to feel guilty, but there's probably a lot of families out there that aren't as lucky as us, that their loved one didn't survive from this flu.
6 months on, the close-knit Cobram community has wrapped their arms around Sarah, Rob, and Axel.
Look at you.
No one takes Sarah's second chance at life for granted, and it's all about making sure this invisible killer that lurks and lingers amongst us all never destroys another family again.
To think how close you came because of the flu.
Let's hope, from my experience with the flu and other people that have lost loved ones, that people do start to take this very seriously, because it needs to be taken seriously. It is not something that you should just go, it's a flu, it won't kill me.
You might get the flu shot and still get sick, but you're not going to get as sick. You're going to have an immunity that can fight to a point. So yeah, you still might get your runny nose and feel unwell, but hopefully you don't end up like Sarah.
How lucky do you feel?
We don't need to buy a lotto ticket. We've won it 10 times over, mate. It's sitting next to me. First prize every time.
Oh, that is the cheesiest
Buttering
line.
me up.
That's the cheesiest line I've ever heard, but somehow coming from you, it was all okay.